Hello, everybody. Good evening here in Jerusalem, and good morning to, or good afternoon to everybody else. So my name is David Hanegbi. Thank you, Scott. I'm the Discovery Operation Manager here in Exlibris. And in my team, we're overseeing CDI operations, CDI, the Central Discovery Index. So in today's session, we will be talking about best practices for CDI. This webinar is part of the content quarterly webinars that we are holding in the content group. The next session will be, I think, in July, and will be presented by Rel Elstein, our product manager. And we also have a series of webinars in the last month or two, focusing on CDI, a single activation with Alma, as the expert with support. And here we're talking about the best practices for CDI and more in the point of view of the content operations. So I will go through the agenda. And here in the session today, I think we will try to take the advantage to take a step back and not talk about all the functionalities and all the specific troubleshooting in CDI. Of course, this is important very much, but we want to talk a little bit about the basics of content operation, the basic of what we do here in Exlibris, because we believe that drawing the big picture again and talking about the basics of what we do, we believe it's really, really helpful for our customers, for the community, to understand better, to troubleshoot, to understand what they see in the UI, to understand what they see in Alma, and to understand how all of this comes together. So we will do the back to basic of context. We'll talk about how we ingest content into the discovery systems. We will talk about how delivery and discovery work together, the interoperability, because as you know, CDI works and serves Primo customers, Primo UI customers, Summon UI customers, and also from the side of the backend library, CDI serves SFX libraries, Alma libraries, and 360 libraries. And SFX, Alma, and 360 are our KBs, and they work together with the index. Eventually, and I would say it here, it all comes to the end, to the bottom line, where we want our users, students or library users, to go to the UI, to search what they want, find relative and accurate and relevant results, see if they're available or not, click and read the full text on the providers' platforms. This is the end game. So to make these 3-4 clicks happen, one after another, we are holding all the Exlibris products, Exlibris content products, and the providers' content to enable these 4 or 5 clicks. And as you all know, if something is not working, if the search is not good, the results are not relevant, the click is the link is failing, and so on. So we missed our target, and we didn't give our users what they actually need. After talking and reviewing the basics here, discovery, delivery, we will check again the collection types in CDI and understand better how they work. Now in the world of a single activation, we have all the activation, the search activation that used to happen in Primo's central interface in the My Profile or registration. Now customers and the librarians do them on the KB, okay, on SFX Alma 360. And for this reason, on the Alma SFX, on the KB UI, the librarian can actually see, can actually see much of the info that is regarding the discovery records that are linked to this KB collection. So we have different types and different fields, what we call descriptive fields on the collections. We show and we tell what is the collection type, how the linking is working, how the rights are calculated. So to understand the collection type, we will explain more how we do rights in CDI, how we do linking in CDI. And also we will explain what are your options as customers, as librarians, what are your options to choose when you're activating the CDI collections. Okay, so let's start. We are in the content world, in the content products. We have, so I talked about the end game, okay, the user that's searching things and reaching to full text. So I want to share a short story from my not so recent history, but about 10 years ago, I was working in the library. The library was not that high-tech library. It was a national library, so our focus was more on, you know, old newspapers, manuscripts, archival material. But also we wanted to start and buy and purchase ebooks, electronic ebooks. So how it happened then? We purchased the books from the provider. I don't remember who it was. And then after a few weeks, we got an envelope, and in the envelope, there was a CD. Okay, if you remember this thing. And in the CD, there were a few 100,000 of MARC records, MARC file, that we needed to load to our local catalog. Each record has 856 with a link. And of course, we got a permission using IP. And we had the records in our local catalogs. So we had ebooks, yay. And after the year ended and we decided to cancel the subscription or change the subscription, we actually needed to delete all these few 100,000 records from the catalog. So this was a few years ago. And now we're in the world where the electronic resource are the most important, in many cases, is most important resource that the library has. And especially in this recent year with COVID, when most of our users are using and browsing and need to do the research from home or from outside the campus, and the electronic resources, the ebooks, the journals, became so much more important to the library. So looking back and looking where we are now we are in a place where Exlibris actually, Exlibris products, Exlibris content products, actually enables the libraries to browse and see the content without having them in their catalogs. So for this, we have the product, we have the KB, and we have the index. And we're actually telling the customers, you do not need to catalog the electronic resources. No library in the world can do this on its own. Okay, that's too much. We get the content from the providers. We host it and we store it in our databases, in the KB and in the index. And all you as a library needs to do is just activate the collection that you have purchased from the provider, and the records will appear. So it's a win-win game for the providers because they have their content discoverable and available via the main UI search of the libraries. We have the customers have all the electronic resources discoverable, and the Exlibris products enabling the browsing, the searching, and the clicks to the provider platforms. And this is like the big picture of the content world these days in Exlibris products. So let's look a little bit into what we have. We have the KBs, we have SFX, Alma, and 360. SFX, Alma traditionally work with the Primo UI, and 360 works with the Salmon UI. In the KBs, we have title level metadata, which means the entries that we have in the database are of the title level, which means the journal name or the book name, but not further. We do not have the articles, we do not have the book chapters. We only have the title level. The KB is an electronic resource management tool, which means that the library needs to manage their subscription and the electronic resource using the KB. So for this, the KB includes collections, the provider's offerings, and we need to be very aligned and match the provider's offerings in the KB, so the library will find what they've purchased in the KB. It's supposed to be very simple, that the KB will have all the collections that are available, and not only commercial, of course, open access and other initiative and institutional repositories, all are present in the KB. The KB also functions as link resolver, and this is not a feature that is part of the activation, but actually a feature that is part of the click to the full text, where the link resolver is a functionality that exists more than 20 years ago. I think more than 20 years, even 3 years, and the link resolver actually knows to create a link using a metadata from a record. This is a very important feature, and we use it a lot to link between metadata and not more than one provider platform, because the metadata of the record actually serves as a unique ID for the resource, and with this unique ID, we can go to any provider platform that supports this and lead the user directly to the article. To maintain the KB collections and titles, we receive from the providers KBART, and in some cases also MARC records. KBART is actually, you know, it's a text file basically with a table with a list of the journals or the titles that are part of this title list, of part of this collection or provider offering. It has the title, it has the identifier, ISSN, EISSN, ISBN. Of course, it has the coverage, and it's important to understand that even the KBART is a standard in the industry, and of course, MARC is a standard in the industry. Many times, and one of our challenges in content operations is actually to handle not standardized formats and not standardized title list, and we need to make our best to meet the providers in the middle and ingest what they give us for the benefit of the customers. Index, of course, we have Primo Central, which is still serving some of the customers, but of course, most of our customers are now searching in live in CDI, which is the index of Exlibris. And in the index, we have article level metadata. So compare in versus to the KB, where we have the title, the index has the article. And where I'm talking about article, but I'm also talking about book chapters, patent standards, newspaper articles, and the index is much more flexible in terms of content types and types of content that we can include in it. The index is optimized for keyword search, which means that the search actually happens in most cases. Of course, we also have ALMA, records that are published to Primo in the ALMA Primo world, but the index is where we have most of our records. And when users are searching, in most cases, we want them to find the articles or the records of CDI. And for this, CDI includes rich record, which means that we have the authors, the subjects, the abstract, the full text. Not always, but in some cases, we actually index all the full text of the article. It will not be displayable, but the keywords match will work on it. And the thought here is to index all these fields and many more in order to find the best match for the user's query in the UI. In CDI, we also have local catalogs for Salmon clients. As you know, the Salmon solution actually hosts or includes the Salmon local catalog in CDI. So the Salmon users have the Salmon UI. They can see the central records alongside the local records, but both types are stored in CDI. Of course, Primo customers or even some customers who are not activated for these local catalogs are not able to see them, but this is part of CDI, and this is part of our responsibility as discovery operations. To maintain the index, we receive from the providers XML and MARC. These are the main formats. I would say that approximately 90% are working with XML. And also here, Also, although the industry has standards for XML to describe books, to describe journals, if you're talking about JATs, bits, I would say also that many times, I would say more than 50%, the XML formats that we get are unique to the providers, and we actually need to build a tailor-made mapping and normalizations for each provider's feed to map it to the CDI schema. So after talking about KB and CDI, we can see how this reflects in the numbers. We have 3 KBs, SFX, 360, and ALMA, with over than 58,000 collections. And collections are providers' offerings. And over the 70 million holdings, which means titles per provider. But when we talk about the index, here the scale is different, and we have 4.2 billion records, and we are seeing a 10% of annual growth in the index. And just to make sure that this point is clear, so let's take, for example, I don't know, Science magazine. Okay, so Science magazine will have one, or if of course several providers are offering this, so we'll have a few dozen entries of Science magazine in the KB. But when we are looking into the article world, to the index world, so Science magazine exists. I'm not sure when it was first published, but quite many years. And in each year, this magazine publishes a few issues, and in each issue, it has between 10 to 20 articles. So you can do the math and see how the title level, the article level are of such a different scale of numbers. Okay, so we talked before a little bit about the win-win, how the institutions, the content providers, and Exlibris are working together. And let's review this for a minute. The institutions are purchasing subscription for the content from the content providers. Okay, a library wants an ebooks collection, so they go to one of our content providers, ProQuest, EBSCO, Gale, Sage, JSTOR, and so on, and they purchase. What they're purchasing is actually access. Okay, they don't get records. Okay, thanks God, but they have the access to see the content on the provider's platform. This happens with IP authentication, Open Athens, Shibboleth, and of course, many other authentication methods that are common in the industry, and of course, we are supporting them. The institutions, after they've purchased the collections from the providers, they go to the KB and they activate it. Okay, they say, yes, I want to see this. I have full text activate. I have full text subscription for this content. I want to see it. So in order to complete the picture and complete this scenario, we actually need the content providers to send Exlibris their content. So we can have it in our KB, in our index, and then we have the triangle complete, okay? And we have the end scenario happening without any problem, where the users are searching in Exlibris products UI. In the UI, they're searching what for the search term they need. They see the results, and they can actually get a link to the full text, which is based on their institutional subscription. And when we talk about the content flow here, so again, we need to remember that Exlibris is not cataloging the records. Okay, of course, we're responsible for them, and we're doing a lot of corrections and responsible for the quality. But the source of the record, the source of what we are showing in our products is the providers. Okay, the provider is sending us the content. We load it to the CDI and the KB, and the institutions or the users can browse for it and see it in our UIs. Okay, in the next slide, I would like to talk a little bit about the ingestion process and the ingestion best practices. This is like a brief look into the day-to-day work of what we do in content operations. And I think it's really important because many of you must be asking yourself why this content is not yet in CDI, and why my regional content is not prioritized yet, and so on. So maybe we'll review this for a minute or two. So the first step when we need to add content to CDI is, of course, identify what to load. Of course, there is so much today in the world of content, and we need to be very, very smart and to make sure that our work matters for the community. So we need to identify what we need to add. And for this, we have the ID exchange, we have the nurse, who have many other platforms and channels between Exlibris and the communities around the world. And our work here, led by the product managers, is actually to understand what the community needs and prioritize smartly. Then we are reviewing and evaluating sample content from the providers. We're contacting them, and we need to see if the content stands in our quality checks, if it's something that we actually can use. Maybe the quality is not good enough. Maybe they cannot support updates. So this is part of a review of like a go no go decision that we need to decide if we go with this or not. We are approving the sample content that we got from the providers. In the world of discovery, and also when it comes to ALMA and MARC records, we need to sign a data sharing agreement. This is important because we're actually using the provider's content. I mean, this is the intellectual property of the providers. Of course, we're using it for the benefit of our joint users, but this is part of the process, signing the agreement with the providers. The next steps are acquiring the full content set by the providers, and I want to just explain that it's not a CD in an envelope anymore, and we need to make sure that the content we need to build a stable and a reliable process, or you can say a pipe between the providers and us. Okay, we need to make sure that we are having a FTP. It might be an FTP, it might be OAI protocol, it might be API, but we need to make sure that the process that we're building with the provider is reliable and stable. And nobody wants to purchase the content from the provider and then see that the content is not accurate, is not current, not updating well. And for this, we need to work very good in the beginning to make sure that what we're building is good to go for the future as well. Not only one time, but to think forward. Then after we have the content and we have the content on hand, this comes I would say the bread and butter of my team's work, and where we actually becoming more creative, and actually where we are bringing our librarianship, our librarian skills to play, where we need to review the content that we got from the providers and actually normalize it and map it into the CDI schema. Okay, I explained before that each provider, and sometimes in the provider, each feed or each set of records might be in a different format, different rules, different quality of metadata, and we have one size to fit them all in the CDI schema. And we have closed list of content types. We have that the fields for identifiers, and we cannot play it. We show authors in certain way, and many times we need to be creative in the normalization process. And actually here we are actually writing a code many times to map and to manipulate the provider's XML into the CDI schema. And here it's again because we want to get what we can from the providers, but also we cannot do whatever he wants or whatever is sent to us, because we need to keep CDI with one schema and with our standard of quality. Another part of this of the content of the operational tasks are the linking and rights configurations. And also here we need to work together with the provider and understand for rights. So how do they sell their content? Is it like a one collection that you buy it all, or it's selective? If it's selective, so we need to make sure that they actually sending us also title list in the KB that customers can selectively activate. And also we need to have really good and reliable identifiers in the records, in both sides, in the KB and in CDI, so we can do the match. Also in linking, we need to understand how the provider wants the links to work, okay? Does it support OpenURL? Does he require they require some authentication in the link itself? We need to make sure before we release the content, before they load the data, we understand it, we can support it, and we document it for the customers. Then we load the data, and in the minute we load the data, it's actually visible in the index, and everybody can see it. And after we load the data, we actually only starting with the maintenance and the support. And the maintenance includes the updates processing, the leads processing, and of course the support. If it's a record correction for a link, for a metadata element, and if it's a collection level issue where something was changed, the provider has changed the platform, changed the linking method, stopped sending updates, and so on. All of this is under our responsibility to maintain and support the collection after we load them. So now let's dive a little bit more into how delivery and discovery work together, the interoperability. We mentioned before that after the customers purchasing the content from the providers, they can go to the KB, SFX, 360, Alma, and activate what they need. The KBs are sending the rights to CDI. When we say rights, these are the holdings files. This is a format, an XML format. We have 3 or 2 files of holdings file, depends on the CDI model. And in these holdings files, we actually have the list of identifiers with the titles, with the coverage, and also the collection identifiers, the DBIDs, that are sent to CDI. CDI knows to calculate the rights per institution and per record. So you can imagine you have a big table of all the institution on the X and on the X side, our axis, and all the CDI records in the Y axis. Okay, so for each dot, for each square in this huge table, we have 1 or 0. For each record, we calculate based on the customer's activations, if the customers have activation to it, have rights to it or not. And the results are visible in the Primo and Salmon UI. So let me jump to the next slide for a minute, just to make sure we all understand. This is Primo UI. So the end users have searched a keyword in the UI, and this is after expand, so they can see also what's available and also what's not available. And the customers can see 2 records, 2 books. Okay, the first one, both of books are good match for the keywords. Okay, this is exactly what the end users searched for. But the first one is available online, which means that for this institution, this specific record, this specific ISBN has full text rights. Okay, the user can click to the available online and read it on the provider's platforms. And I say in single or multiple providers platforms if they have access to more than one. And in the second book, which has no online access, this is also a good match, but the rights calculation that CDI did based on the holdings files, the result of this calculation was that this book does not have full text rights for this specific institution. Going back just for a minute here, so in the bottom you can see the arrow with the link resolver linking, and just to mention here that the KBs are also functioning as link resolvers. So this comes to play in the end when after the users have found what they want and they're clicking. If the collection or even the specific records are using link resolvers, the metadata elements from the record built in an open URL format will be sent to ARMA SFX 360 to generate list of collections of available portfolios, and also to generate the link itself directly to the provider's platform. So we explained that rights are calculated per institution, per record, based on KB activations. But how we do it? So we actually have two main methods of doing rights. And to make it clear, we will call them title level rights and collection level rights. So title level rights are based on identifier match between the KB activations and the CDI records. So let's say the institution has activated an ISSN, a portfolio with an ISSN. So now the rights calculation will go to CDI records and will search with all the records with this ISSN. Of course, if there is a coverage element here, it will know to take it into account. And all the records that match these activations are marked as full text available and can return as full text available in first search. Collection level rights are based not on identifiers, ISSN, ISBN, etc., but are on the collection identifier, the DBID. Also here we have this identifier on the collection in the KB and on the CDI records. And we can use this to calculate collection level rights. We do this, and we'll talk about it more later on, but we can do the collection level rights when the title list is not supported. We have a database in KB where the identifiers are not sufficient, or they're missing, or they're not reliable, or they're missing even in one of the sites. It might be in the KB or in the CDI. And of course, this is optional when the customers, the providers are actually supporting this sales model, and they're setting this content as a full and one collection. So let's remember this term, the title level rights, collection level rights, and we will connect this to what you see in the ARMA UI when you're coming to activate collections. In the next slide, I would like to explain more about how, again, we are still in the rights area, and now we talk how the rights are affecting what we see in the UI. So we saw before that we have two records. One is available and not one is not available, and this was taken after hitting the expand. So I would like to explain more about this, what I call the search circles. In CDI, we have two basics and models for customers. We have the fully flexible model, which is the one that most of Primo Central customers have moved to. And of course, we have the Summon and Easy Active for Primo customers, which works a little bit different. And I would like to explain. In Primo Central, in the world of, you can say, dual activation, the activation happened in two places. After purchasing a content, the librarian will go to the KB and activating the collection for full text. And in addition, would go to Primo Central UI, to my profile, and activating the collection for search. In the world of a CDI, of the single activation, the second activation on the Primo Central UI doesn't exist anymore. It all happens in the KB. But we are still enabling the customers the flexibility and the option to decide what will be active for search. And how this happens. In the first search, and now I'm talking about the inner circle, the pink one, the users will see results that have are matching by keywords and are available for search. And available for full text, which means that the customers, the library has full text subscription to read full text. After hitting expand, the circle will include, in addition to what we said now, to the pink circle, the circle will include also records that are not available for full text, as we've seen before. But still, of course, the results has to be relevant to the search. But still, even after they expand, there is a certain part of the index that is not visible to the fully flexible users. And this is where this active research comes to play. Okay, the librarians in the fully flexible mode can decide what will be the limits of the second search, the expand search. They can say that only the collections that are active for search will come to play in the second search, in the expand search. In the summon and easy active model, the inner circle, the first search will be the same. Keyword match and what's full text available. But after hitting expand, all the index will participate in the results. There is no search activation, so all the index, 100% of the index, will participate in the results, and customers will see users will see all results that are matching to keywords and available and not available. I said 100%, and it's not 100% because we also have this small circle of restricted for search, and this is part of the collections that will not shown in the expand search unless the customers are activating them. And this is because these collections are require subscription to see the records. Let's say, for example, Scopus or Web of Science. So only customers who actually subscribe to the content can see it in the expand search and after they're activating them. Now, important and basic thing to understand about CDI is the note below. Results are from all metadata source, including alternative coverage. So the activation is for full text. So if I've activated a Sage collection or a Procust collection, it means that I have access to see the full text on the Sage platform or the Procust platform. However, the metadata source of the records is from all over the index. Not like Primo Central, when the libraries would do activation, the dual activation, and they would need to also activate collections for search. While as we are taking this part out of the acquisition, we are actually enabling our customers to see and to browse and to all the all the records from all over the index and from all the metadata source are participating in the results. This means that alternative coverage happens by itself behind the scenes. If in Primo Central, after purchasing, for example, an EBSCO content, you would need to go to the Primo Central and activate several collections to support the EBSCO activation and to provide alternative coverage. In the CDI world, CDI will know by itself to give the customers the records that match the full text activations without looking into the metadata source. Okay, so after explaining about the rights process, we can now look and understand better the CDI collection types. So I try to group the types into four, you can say 3.5 groups. The gray one is still in progress, and I will explain this a bit in the next slides. So as I said before, in the KB and basically in SFX Alma, we give on the UI, on the Alma UI, SFX UI, we give our librarians an ability to understand more about the discovery elements or discovery components of this collection. We explain if this is a full text or ANI. You can see if it's a database or a selective. You can see the full text rights of it. You can see how we do the linking. And you can, if you open the CDI tab, you can see more data like the resource type, the percentage of coverage, and so on. We will be focusing on the main things and the main feature of the types of the collections. So the first two in the first row are the full text collections, which means that the CDI type is full text collections. This means that the provider is actually offering access to full text in their platforms. We have two main types. The first one is a database type of collection. Database type of collection will not have title list. So we will not be able to do a title level rights, or how we call it in the descriptive field, subscription link resolver. We can do only collection level rights. We can rely on, as I explained before, we can rely only on the identifier, the collection identifier that will match between the collection and the CDI records, the DB ID. Because we don't have title list, we also use in linking record linking, which means that we will rely on the direct link in the record to take the user directly to the provider's platform. So an example for this kinds of collection, you can think of Brill, Encyclopedia of Islam, or ProQuest History Vault products, or Oxford Bibliography Online. These are kind of collections that actually do not have title list, sometimes because it's only one title, sometimes because they don't have identifiers. And this also many times will be a unique content specifically for this provider. And the best way to have it in the KB and CDI is in this way: database, collection level rights, and link in record. Going to the right, in the other kind of full text collection, here we have more the classic collection that you can find in the KB. It will be of type selective aggregator. It will have title list. And because it has title list, we can offer title level rights. And what you will see in most cases in the full text rights, you will see subscription link resolver. I did put here title level / collection level rights because, and I will explain it more in the next slide, because the customers do have the option to decide in this kind of collection if they want to do title level rights or to do collection level rights. And they can do this by I'm subscribed to only part of the titles in this collection checkbox, and I will remind this again in the next slide. When we come to linking, also the classic selective collection with title list will use link resolver because we have the data has identifiers, it has title list, so we can use link resolver, and we can also enable the cross providers link. So this means seeing a record from one provider and actually use the link for another provider. However, some of the collections that do have titles in the KB are still configured by purpose to use in linking record. And a good example for this will be Alexander Street video collections, where we do have portfolios on the Alma side, but we decided that the best linking will work in linking record, because this is a unique content without identifiers, and this will be the best linking for this kind of content. Now, the open access circle above is actually not part of the rights, and for this reason, I put it a little bit aside in this slide. The open access and the partially open access are values in the full text rights field, but they're not saying about the rights process. What they're saying is, what they're describing is the open access indication on this collection CDI records. This indication, of course, we receive it from the providers. We have the open access that we use when we have all of the content, or our threshold is 95%. And we also have the partially open access when the content is mixed, and some of the records have open access and some is not. And this we don't have a definite threshold here, but also everything that in the middle of the 90% open access and 10 to 20% non-open access. And of course, we are checking if the open access indication is really reliable and if the providers can support this before we configure the collection as open access or partially open access. The ANI collection, I will remind it here only briefly because I will talk a little bit more about this in the next slide. We have the ANI collections with our database and using link resolver, and also a new option that is not live yet, but it's on plan, to have hybrid ANI collections. So we will return to this later on, but let's talk a bit for best practices for rights. So a few things that we need to remember when we talk about rights, and I think this can be used by you to remember where you can how can you control and configure the collections. So first thing to remember is that full text activation is also search activation, and I think we hear many questions, not now, but in the beginning of CDI, many questions of customers that, and we also need to do the switch to understand that in the world of single activation, we don't need to activate it also for full text and also for search. If we activate it for full text, it means that it will be active for search, and these results will show. We subscribe to only some titles in this collection. This yes/no checkbox appears in collections with portfolios, not in database without portfolios, of course. This is actually your ability to decide if you do collection level rights or title level rights. Our recommendation here and the best practice, and as we say in the documentation, when it's a link and record collections with portfolios, to use it as to choose no and to use the collection level rights. If it's a link resolver collections with portfolios, we recommend our basic recommendation is to use title level rights, which means choose the yes option. In CDI only full text activation button, it's available in link and record and ANI collections. Here, this is another option to actually choose in the collection level rights. And this button, this activation is different from the basic activation of ALMA, for collection of full text activation ALMA, because it enables you to publish it, the full text to publish it in CDI without publishing to discovery the collections bib or the portfolios. So, for example, if you would like to see for a specific collection that using link and record only the CDI records and not the database or the collection bib or portfolios, you can choose this option and see only the CDI records using collection level rights. In ANI collections, we need, this is something that we need to remember, that ANI collections are not selling full text. And actually, this is something that I believe it will be changed in the future, because it is a bit confusing now, where we are actually need to activate ANI collections like they are full text collections. ANI collections, you can say that you need to activate it for search because records will show as full text only when they match to other full text collections. The ANI collection itself does not have the full text. It will have full text. It will show a full text only when they match to other subscription with full text. So for example, a Web of Science record will show as available in the UI only if the customers have rights to see this record from another full text collection like EBSCO, like ProQuest. But the best practice here will be to activate it like a full text collections. So it means if you have a collection Web of Science or a Scopus or any other ANI collection, you need to activate it or by simple activation in ALMA, of course, unsuppressing the bib, or by using the CDI only full text activation button. One more thing to remember when we talk about rights is the search rights. We didn't talk about it before. And here we have two values, free and subscription. I would say that more than 97% of the collections, the CDI collections, are free for search. But of course, some providers do require subscription in order to view the records. It might be that because they're ANI and this is actually their product, the bibliographic records is what they're selling. And some providers do require this from other reasons. Anyway, we need to remember that when we have this kind of collections, the records for these collections will appear only when the users are logged in to the Primo or Summon UI. So we covered here like a cheat sheet or a quick reminders for the options that the customers have when they're activating collections. And I hope this is more clear after the introduction that we made. We understand how rights are working, what is collection level rights, and what is data level rights. When we talk about linking, we have three main methods. The open URL linking, which is the link resolver. We talked that we explained that this is used in most cases in selective aggregators collections with title list. And of course, also in ANI collections. In ANI collections, we cannot use the link in record because we want to direct the user to a full text. And we don't have the full text in the ANI. So for this reason, also the ANI collections, although they are database type, will use link resolver. In the open URL linking, I explained before that we actually taking from the record the metadata elements to create a unique ID for the specific resource. However, we are using platform-specific document ID, for example, the Gale ID or the ProQuest ID, whenever we can, because we want our link to be much more reliable and sustainable. And of course, relying only on metadata elements has its benefits, but also has its risks, because metadata elements can be inaccurate, can be not updated, and the document ID, when we're using OpenURL, is the best practice to use, and we're trying to expand and use more of this. Link in record, where OpenURL is not possible, or record is unique and available only from one platform, we will use link in record. And a small type of the link in record will be the Primo link template when the providers require authentication with specific parameters in the link. So for example, in Naxos or Films on Demand or Gale link in record correction, the customers will need to insert their authentication key that they're getting from the providers in the Primo table or in Alma or in the 360. And then the URL that will be generated from the link will have this authentication key in it. You can read more in this article below, and I hope this will be part of the presentation and about the supported linking method. In the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I would just want to talk a little bit about ANI. We covered most of it, that ANI collections offer metadata and not full text, and they will appear as full text available only if they match to other activations. We do see that we have many cases of, not many cases, but some cases of hybrid ANI collections, which means that let's take, for example, Eric. So Eric, they're ANI, and they have they have a lot of content in their platform, but for some of the content, they also have the full text on their platform. So in the Primo Central world, we couldn't handle this, and we had to split the collections into two. And now in CDI, we want to do it smarter, and we plan to maintain one collection when possible, which means wherever possible, we want to maintain one collection, one Eric collection, and we want to make sure that the records with full text will appear as available with direct working link to Eric platform, while the ANI records will behave like classic UI, which means they will not appear as full text unless they are matching to other activations. This is still in progress, but the plan here currently is to have another indication on the collection in the KB, which will say that the full text rights and the type of the linking of this collection is hybrid. And you will know that for the records that have direct links, you will get direct and working link. And for the records that do not have a direct link, you will have the link by link resolver only if they match to other subscription you have. So this is in the future. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. I hope it helps you to understand more of what we do in content, how the content world in the industry and this triangle of providers, institutions, and libraries working together, and understand more how you actually can activate and use the activations in the CDI world. And please feel free to ask through all the channels, support, CDI info, and any other Ex-Libris representative to make sure you make the best of the content in our products.